Hello everyone, Liuba here. Today we will make a sophisticated cheesecake with different textures and flavors. The base is a chocolate crumble with hazelnuts, then a layer of hazelnut frangipane, tender caramel cheesecake, and the finishing touch, a whipped coffee ganache made with milk chocolate. The result is a very delicious and interesting dessert. Let us get cooking. Let us begin the preparation with the cheesecake base, a chocolate crumble. We will need butter at a pomade consistency. This means a pliable butter at roughly 14 to 16 degrees depending on the butter itself. In other words, the butter is not straight from the refrigerator, yet it is also not warmed. Next, we will need flour, sugar, cocoa powder, and a pinch of salt. We will start by sifting the dry ingredients together. That will be flour and cocoa powder, and we will add a pinch of salt. Next, whisk everything thoroughly. Then we add sugar to the dry ingredients and whisk everything thoroughly once again. Now we add the butter, and our task is to turn the mixture into moist crumbs as quickly as possible. The easiest and most reliable way is to mix in a stand mixer using the paddle attachment, that is, not whipping with beaters. I quickly make the crumbs by hand. The most important thing here is that the butter must not start to melt and must not warm above 22 degrees. The process literally takes only a few minutes. This is the crumb you should end up with. We spread it immediately on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. But before baking, we chill the crumb for several hours in the refrigerator so that the butter can firm up again. And then we bake the crumble in a preheated oven at a temperature of 160 degrees for about 15 minutes. During baking, the crumble needs to be stirred a couple of times with a whisk. And as a result, you will obtain a very delicious, fragrant, crumbly crumble. Let it cool completely. Now we prepare the mixture for forming the cheesecake base. We will need, of course, our baked chocolate crumble. Next, we will need toasted hazelnuts. I toasted the hazelnuts in a skillet until they developed a golden tint and their distinctive aroma. We do not remove the skins. We will use the hazelnuts just as they are, and we will need a little butter, which will need to be melted. Pulse the chocolate crumble together with the hazelnuts in a blender, and you should end up with a fine, uniform mixture that still contains small pieces of hazelnut. We add the melted butter to it, mix until we have a uniform sticky mass, and then we will form the base. For baking the cheesecake, you will need a pastry ring. I make the bottom from a piece of Teflon sheet and clamp it with foil, which holds it securely. Next, I place the ring onto the metal base of a springform pan. We place the mixture into the ring and shape the bottom and the sides. The mixture molds easily and holds its shape well. We make the sides reach the full height of the ring and pay attention to the junction of the bottom and the walls in order to create a sharp corner. Then we put the ring in the refrigerator so that the base can stabilize. And while it is chilling, we will prepare the hazelnut frangipane. For the frangipane, we will need butter, 1 egg, a pinch of salt, sugar, and toasted hazelnuts with their skins. Grind the hazelnuts together with their skins in a blender until they reach the consistency of flour or a very fine crumb. You need to pulse the grinding so that you do not turn the hazelnuts into a paste. I have ended up with a very fine crumb like this. Now for the cream, we need to gradually combine all the ingredients. First, we mix the softened butter with the sugar, then we add the egg and work it in. Next, we add the hazelnut flour and the salt and mix until the mixture is uniform. We obtain a very aromatic cream. We spread it onto the bottom of the chilled base and distribute it evenly. For convenience, I have transferred the cream into a pastry bag. Now we bake the cream together with the crust in an oven, preheated to 170 degrees for about 20 minutes. The frangipane will rise and should brown evenly. We leave it to cool, and in the meantime, we will prepare the cheese filling for the cheesecake. Add the sugar to the cheese and mix on a low speed until the mixture is smooth. Any lumps of cheese should disperse. You will obtain a creamy texture like this. We add the caramel to the cheese and also mix at a low speed until the mixture is combined. The recipe for this very delicious caramel is on my channel. I will leave a link to that recipe in the description below the video. I have slightly warmed the caramel because it solidifies when cold. Next, we add the eggs to the cheese caramel mixture one at a time, incorporating each one. When the first egg has been worked in, we add the next one. You will end up with a smooth, uniform mixture like this. We pour the cream into it and give it a good final stir. The main point is not to whip the mixture but to stir it. You can do it by hand. You will end up with a completely uniform mixture like this. We spoon the cheese filling into the pan on top of the cooled frangipane, smooth the surface, and place the cheesecake in the oven to bake. Cheesecakes are baked slowly at low temperatures, about 110 to 120 degrees, but I know that sometimes they are even baked at 90, and in terms of time, this usually takes from 120 to 150 minutes. This is necessary in order to achieve the perfect texture. Therefore, it is important to adapt the time and temperature to your oven. In my case, it took 2 hours at a temperature of 120 degrees without a water bath. However, next time I plan to use a water bath and I will slightly change the conditions because 2 hours turned out to be too much. Overall, watch the cheesecake and use it as your guide. If it jiggles across the entire surface, it is not done. It should quiver slightly only in the center. And after baking, the cheesecake is also cooled gradually. First, you need to let it cool completely at room temperature, and then you must chill it very well in the refrigerator for about 8 hours. Otherwise, a sudden change in temperature can cause cracks to appear on the surface of the cheesecake. When the cheesecake has fully cooled and set in the refrigerator, it is easy to remove it from the pan. I do not use any hair dryers for this. I simply support the cheesecake on the palm of my hand, and with my other hand, gently rotating, I slowly slide off the ring. And all that remains is to prepare a whipped coffee ganache, which will tie together all the flavors of the cheesecake and decorate it. We will need milk chocolate, 2 parts cream with a fat content of 33%, coffee beans, gelatin, and water for soaking it. We begin, as always, with gelatin. We sprinkle it into cold water, stir thoroughly, and leave it to bloom. Now we will flavor the cream using coffee. For this, you need to crush the coffee beans with a rolling pin. It is very important here to use freshly roasted aromatic coffee that you enjoy. Coffee from the specialty category is best suited for these purposes. We place a portion of the cream in a saucepan, add the crushed coffee beans, and heat it thoroughly, but do not bring it to a boil. We remove it from the heat, cover it with plastic wrap, and let it steep for about 20 minutes or longer if desired. Next, we strain the cream through a sieve set on the scale. Observe how much cream the beans have absorbed and restore that volume with fresh cream. We pour the coffee-infused cream back into the saucepan and heat it, and at the same time we melt the milk chocolate. I melt it in the microwave oven. We add the already bloomed gelatin to the melted chocolate and pour the hot coffee cream over them. With an immersion blender, we blend and then add the second portion of cream that we kept cold. And once more, we blend thoroughly. We end up with an unbelievably aromatic and super delicious ganache. We pour it into a shallow container, cover it with plastic wrap pressed directly onto the surface, and allow it to set in the refrigerator for about 8 to 10 hours. It is most convenient to prepare this component on the same day you bake the cheesecake. While the cheesecake is chilling in the refrigerator, the ganache will be setting at the same time. After stabilization, the ganache becomes firmer and changes its texture. We transfer it into a bowl and whip it until it is fluffy and begins to hold its shape. I whipped it a little firmer for piping through a decorative tip, but it is very important not to overwhip the ganache so that it retains its delicate, creamy texture and does not start to separate. The ganache needs to be used right away. I decorated the cheesecake with a piping tip, but you can decorate it in other ways as well, for example by piping waves with a pastry bag. For decoration, I also used small drops of nut praline. Friends, our cheesecake is ready! It turned out incredibly delicious with a crumbly nut-studded crust, a rich hazelnut frangipane, a delicate caramel aftertaste from the cheesecake, and a coffee ganache that ties everything together, making the dessert multifaceted and refined. Friends, be sure to try making this cheesecake. And that is all from me. I, as always, thank you all for your attention. See you in upcoming videos. Bye-bye.